Hey, hi, hello. This week I am only going to be reading horror. Recently a friend came to me and said, "Hey, buddy, pal, what horror books are you reading in the month of October? You know, the spooky season." And I said, "Well, my good friend, I'm reading House of Leaves." To which she said, "And?" I have failed it. As someone who has recently, and by recently I mean in the past 2 years, really gotten into horror, I have failed myself. So instead of doing the normal TBR that I was setting out to do at the beginning of this month this week, I'm scrapping all of that. Apologies, TBR bingo. And I'm gonna be just reading horror. I went on Amazon and I ordered myself some physical horror books because I don't own any that I haven't read yet. My mom did already open it because it accidentally went to her house and was addressed to her and she didn't know what was going on, but I have not looked inside. And then I have checked out about 5 horror audiobooks from my library. I checked out that many because I basically went into my library app and said, I want audiobooks, I want horror, and I want it available now. And I read a few summaries and I basically borrowed anything that sounded even slightly good to me. So I'm not gonna read all 5 of those. I'm not gonna read everything in this box, but I like the idea of having options. Let's see what's in this box. The book Small Favors by Aaron A. Craig. This one's pretty long. It's close to 500 pages, but it is YA horror, so I find those read pretty dang quickly. Oh my goodness, look how pretty that is. Next up, I decided to get The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I have not read a Grady Hendrix yet. I'm kind of not sure this is where I should be starting, to be honest. I have on hold the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, but it won't be coming in time. So this one's probably going to get pushed off to a future week, possibly in November or December. This is about final girls, so girls who escaped serial killers or murderers, forming a support group to help each other get over it, and then girls in their support group start getting killed off. And then third and final is Dark and Shallow Lies. This is another YA horror. I have been wanting to get my hands on this book for so freaking long. I've had my eyes on it. I feel like this is going to be a 5-star, to be honest. A girl who is 17 who spends her summers in the psychic capital of the world, a place where no one can keep any secrets. And then her best friend disappears 6 months earlier and can't believe that no one in a town full of psychics knows what's happening. There's going to be some investigating, and I don't know, I just really enjoy YA horror. I don't know why, because I'm kind of getting out of YA fantasy and have been for a while now, but YA horror like really does it for me. Just over 400 pages, but I feel like the words are pretty big on the page. Audiobook time, let's talk about it. So first up, I did borrow Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I don't know what it's about. So I know that Karen Slaughter is like extremely gory, and that's why I picked it up, because I do really enjoy gruesome horror, and I thought that this would be a nice touch of that. Next, I borrowed The String Diaries by Stephen Lloyd Jones. I've heard of him. I can't tell you right now what else he's written though, and my library doesn't have anything else by him. So this is: a family is hunted by a centuries-old monster, a man with a relentless obsession who can take on any identity. I love that idea of like not knowing who you can trust or who's even real. I got Acts of God by Jill Cement, which is talking about, I read this summary a few times, and it's a few different women who are coming together because they discover mushrooms in their hall closet, and at the same time there's all this like scientific research about drugs for women, something about that anyways. And then I have Shallow Graves, which is about a girl who is dead and wakes up in her shallow grave, and she doesn't remember who killed her or why, and I think it's about her investigating her death. The Chalk Man, which I think is the one I'm the most excited about on this list, besides maybe Dark and Shallow Lies. I think this sounds absolutely fantastic. So The Chalk Man is about, it's a psychological suspense that debuts a childhood game gone dangerously awry that will keep readers guessing right up to the shocking ending. Anyways, that gave us nothing. So Eddie and his friends are on the verge of adolescence, spending their days biking in search of adventures. The Chalkmen are their secret code stick figures they draw for one. Okay, I don't need to read all of this to you guys. Later in life, Eddie is nursing a drinking problem and trying to forget his past until one day he gets a letter containing a Chalkman, the same one he and his friends saw when they found the body. I'm not going to keep reading that, but the reasons why I'm really drawn to that one, and I think I'm going to like it the most, is it reminds me a little bit of Alex North's books, The Whisper Man and The Shadows, I think is his other one, and I loved both of those. I really love horror told about little kids, or like there was a little kid section and now we're like seeing the repercussions of their actions. Those are all the books. I am gonna go off now and finish up last week's books, and I'll come and talk to you guys this weekend. Welcome to Saturday. So I've officially finished all of the books for last week's reading vlog, which means I am starting on this week's reading vlog. I went to the pool, which is where I finished up what I was supposed to be reading, and then I got to start Dark and Shallow Lies. I am only one chapter into this book so far, but I'm really enjoying it. It reminds me a lot of Katrina Leno's like easy writing style, with also like the weird magical realism in a very realistic setting. And I like it a lot. So we're following Gray, who is our main character. Her best friend went missing. I believe the summary said 6 months ago, but the book hasn't reminded me yet of when she went missing. She lives half the year with her dad, half the year with her mom. Her mom lives in this really small town. There's like 100 residents, and it's the psychic capital of the world. And so Gray can't figure out why, because psychics are real and they actually have these real abilities. Like her grandma can read minds, and one of her other friends can like hear voices and music and everything. She can't figure out why none of them can figure out what happened to her best friend. I'm really enjoying it so far. At the beginning of every single chapter so far, there's been this little like gray page with what seems to be part of the story from a different part of the story. Like, I don't have proof, but I feel like this is going to be really important later. Well, like it feels like it's hinting to either the reveal or to something bad that happened in the past. I really loved the first like paragraph of this book, so I'm gonna read it to you guys really quickly. The last time I saw my best friend, she called me a pathetic liar, and then she punched me in the mouth. The shock of it almost kept me from feeling anything until it was over, and I have no idea what Alora was thinking in that last moment, because she didn't say, and I'm not a mind reader. Honey is. My mother was. I guess all the women in my family write up to me, but not me. I've made it the first 100 pages into Dark and Shallow Lies, so I'm going to be taking a quick break to read House of Leaves, because I absolutely freaking need to be making progress on that book, and I've been pushing it off for so long. There have been a few like spookier elements, but so far I wouldn't necessarily say that there was anything that was like horror-esque. But when I looked on Goodreads, it's not actually marked as a horror, which is weird because I know that I saw it there before. But I'm really enjoying this book, and it definitely has 5-star potential still. I think I like books about missing people. I don't have any proof, but it's something that I seem to really enjoy. And I also really love, and I've known this for many years now, books where you don't know if it's paranormal or if it's real life or like what. So it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo-esque mystery kind of a thing. Really love how this book is giving me so much information about the missing girl and about how she went missing that I really don't know what's important and what's not. And I feel like a lot of times I can really accurately predict like what is important and what's happened. And with this, the author's just doing such a good job making everything seem fantastical and not important to the story that I don't really know. I've been making my way through House of Leaves, and then I had to take a break because I was getting an awful headache. I'm at page 125, which is ridiculous because I was at page like 97 when I started and I read it for over an hour, but it's how the book goes. I'm finally getting to the part where like the pages are starting to do weird and funky things, so I'm actually starting to look forward to it. But I'm honest to God at the point where I'm like, I have read over 100 pages of not that interesting of a book. For the payoff is gonna have to be fantastic, and I'm kind of worried it's not gonna be that great. I'm not DNFing this book at this point. I'm gonna finish it and I'm gonna see what it's about and where the scariness is coming from, because it's marked as one of the scariest books ever and I have not been spooked once yet. I'm gonna go on a walk, so I will be doing my next audiobook. I think I'm gonna start with I think it's called Acts of God because it's the shortest one. And I think I can finish it up pretty quickly this weekend. I think it's like 5 hours. So, good morning. It's Sunday. I listened to about 40% of Act of God last night. Honestly, the entire time I was wanting to DNF it. I kept saying, okay, this is a really short audiobook, so if I just get to 30%, I can count it towards bingo, and then it's not like that much of my time was wasted. To get to 30%, I think I had to listen to like an hour and 30 minutes, which on times 2 speed is like 45 minutes. So that's like a normal evening walk for me. But I can't put my finger on it, but now I'm curious enough. Something happened, and I think I want to know what is going to come out of this. I'm definitely not curious about the whole entire mushroom storyline. I, honest to God, feel like this book isn't like a connected piece. I think it's like individual stories that all just happen to be connected by these mushrooms, and they all happen to be like living in the same building. So we're kind of following 4 women so far. A 5th has been introduced where I'm at, but I don't think she's going to have much significance to the main part of the story, but she might have significance on one of our main characters. So we're following these 4 women. They all live in the same apartment complex together, and they find these mushrooms, these like glowing, I can't think of what that word is when they're glowing, mushrooms in their closets, and the city of New York, where they're living, gets contacted and says they have to fumigate, that they're poisonous. So the women are kind of all pushed off onto their own. So it's really a story about like waking up to find this terrifying thing in your home, being forced out of your home, and kind of the loneliness and the isolation and trying to deal with having nothing that you've worked your life towards, because all of their belongings are basically still in there. But I wouldn't say it's horrific yet, because my library had it marked as horror, but let's see what Goodreads users said, if it's more of like a psychological suspense, or my Goodreads says that it's more of a fantasy fiction, contemporary literary fiction mystery. So I could see all of those, to be honest. 4 women we're following. 2 are twin sisters. I think they're like 64 years old, and one is kind of a free spirit. She's living her life. She's going off doing whatever she wants to do, and she runs out of money and has to move in with her twin. And her twin is very play by the books, impersonable, just wants to do life right. The other woman we're following is the woman who actually owns the building. Her name is Vita, and she's an actress, and she's also a landlord. And she did this sex drug commercial a few years ago, I think it was, and now she's having a hard time getting another job because all of the men who are producing look at her and all they see is this sex drug woman. And then we have this woman named Ashley. Ashley is so interesting to read about. She's probably the main reason why I'm still going. She came to America from Russia because her parents wanted to marry her off and she didn't want to have kids. And so they said, you're going to become a nanny so that you can learn how great kids are. And so they sent her off to America to be a nanny for this woman. And Ashley, of course, was a horrible nanny because she didn't care about the kids and emotionally couldn't be there for them and definitely did some sketchy stuff. And so she stole the woman's address book and has started to just live with the people in the address book whenever they're not there. So she moved into Vita's apartment when Vita wasn't there, and then ended up just staying and being like dead silent whenever Vita was at home, and when she wasn't at home could like live in the apartment. So I just finished Act of God. That was the most unsatisfying book I've ever read. I'm not sure what the point of that book was. Found family? Mushrooms are evil? Life is pointless, so just live it however you want? None of those feel right. I rated it 2 stars. Hello, welcome back to Sunday evening. I didn't manage to read anything for Dark and Shallow Lies today, which is kind of disappointing, but as I told you earlier, I finished Act of God, and then I did read a few pages of House of Leaves. It's 8 p.m. I just got back from my evening walk. The weather is so nice here today that I went on multiple walks. It's just so pleasant. It's hard to read, and honest to God, I'm at the point where I'm not sure that the final conclusion is going to be worth it. but I'm going to keep going because I'm curious enough to know why everyone raves about this book, or at least the people who rave about it, why they do, because I have heard some bad things about it and I understand those bad things. But on my evening walk, I decided to start The Chalk Man by CJ Tudor, and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm 10% in, which is about an hour. It's only 10 hours long, so it'll be pretty short. I'll get through it pretty dang quickly. And it's the one about the kids who used to play some type of chalk game when they were little. I don't know much about the story yet, to be honest. What I know is that it's 2 timelines. We're following the same guy and kind of his group of friends in 2 different timelines. One in 1986 when they're children. I don't know exactly how old, but at least old enough to like run off and play on their own, although in 1986 that could be like 10. And then we're following them in 2016 where he's an adult man and he starts to get these letters from his childhood, I think. He hasn't totally explained the letters yet to me either. So in his childhood, he starts off by saying that he doesn't know exactly when the things started, but he thinks it was the day of the carnival. And then he tells us what happens the day of the carnival, which is he basically sees this carnival ride fall apart and kind of mutilate this young girl that he was like kind of checking out. And he rushes over with the help of an adult to save her life because she's like bleeding out. So far, this is the only book that I've started or have read this week that has actually had horrific elements, because just the way he was describing the carnival ride, like falling and crushing half of this girl's body, like almost cutting off her leg, almost popping her eyeball out, like all of that is horror, and it's what I wanted. Everything else really is kind of just been thriller. I'm still hopeful with both Dark and Shallow Lies and House of Leaves that they're gonna have some horror elements, but this one just feels like a horror book. It reminds me a little bit of It because of the dual timelines and because of like the little kids, something horrible happened and now they're adults and they're kind of coming back together to solve some kind of issues. But it also does remind me a little bit of The Shadows by Alex North, which is what I wanted. I love that book, and I'd love to find another book that reminds me of it. And I think part of why it reminds me of The Shadows is because they are in England, and that book also took place in England. Hello, it's Monday. I'm home from work. It was a chilly Florida day. We got down to 52 today, which is like nice. I did a lot of reading or listening to The Chalk Man today while I was at work. I'm now at 50%. I don't think I'm done for the evening either. I'm really, really, really enjoying this story. It reminds me so much of It by Stephen King, but this book is 280 pages, so CJ Tudor got to the point a lot quicker. So why it reminds me of It, there's a group of kids. Specifically, there's all boys and one girl. Haha, ring a bell yet? And they're 14 years old in the 1980s, and they witness a dead body, basically. And they start to learn this fun way to communicate with each other where they leave like little chalk drawings, and they kind of have this code that they've all worked out, and each person is a different color, so they can completely talk to each other without talking to each other. And then we're also following one of the guys in 2016 when things seem to be going wrong once again. One of his old friends calls him up and wants to meet up with him and discuss something that has happened, and they discuss some things and some more things happen, and it's a lot. It's bad. It's great. I love it. There are a lot of trigger warnings so far already in this book, so definitely a huge trigger warning for anything that people think it's okay to say in the 1980s, but we have since learned that it's not okay to say those things. But also it fits the time period. Second, pet death on page, and it wasn't just like a calm death. The pet was murdered. Also, death of a child. Abortion is a really big topic that this book talks about, and on-page rape, along with off-page rape that is discussed. It's a lot, but it's really freaking good. I just got back from my evening walk, and I am 65% through The Chalk Man. my god, I'm loving it. So horrifying. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I forgot to mention earlier that I made it 125 pages into House of Leaves last night. So I'm officially at page 250. I was able to do that because a lot of the pages where I was reading were these pages. So I've been able to read about 20 pages a night up until now, but because of the weird shift, I was able to read, like I said, 125 pages. So I'm hoping to make a nice little dent in it tonight. I am technically at the halfway mark if you exclude the appendixes at the end. Welcome to late Tuesday. I finished The Chalkman this morning. Absolutely fantastic. I loved it. The end had so many twists and turns that I did not see coming. I really freaking enjoyed it. It had horror elements, but it wasn't like super scary or anything. And it was like a really good horror for me personally. So I rated it 5 out of 5 stars. I then picked up Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. It's my next horror book. I am about 15% through it right now. I'm gonna stop and shower, and then I'm gonna keep listening afterwards, which is always such a good idea, right? Like listening to a horror book right before you go to bed. I can't really tell you what this book is about because I'm not totally sure. I'm a little bit lost, to be honest, but there is a few different characters that we're following. One is named Claire. She just got out of prison, jail, somewhere. And her husband like met her for a nice dinner to celebrate, and they get mugged and he gets murdered. And then we're following this single mom who her daughter goes to like this really rich school, and she seems to be really happy about that man dying. And then we're also somewhat following the father of this girl who goes missing, and we're kind of seeing the police reports about, like, we're seeing him read the police reports about his missing daughter. I know they're gonna all be connected because my friend read the prequel and told me briefly about it. I just don't know how they're connected or what's going on or who's who or why's why. I made it to page 312. I'm really enjoying the part, oh my goodness, I'm trying to talk and hold this. I'm really enjoying the parts where there's like fun, funky things happening with the text where it kind of relates to the story. But anything about Jonathan or anything about the main storyline when like things aren't happening with the text, I just don't care about the book. I have made it 50% through Pretty Girls, which may not sound like a lot, but I started this book at 6 p.m. yesterday, and I have read almost 11 hours of it, and I'm not gonna stop. I'm so freaking addicted to this book. I don't want to put it down. It's so good. But I feel like I've stumbled once again upon a book that I wouldn't necessarily call horror. It's definitely more of a mystery thriller. Maybe even like a crime mystery thriller, maybe even a dark mystery thriller. But so far, there really hasn't been anything horror-like in it, but I have 50% left. Yeah, so I told you last night about the 2 women that we were kind of following. I'm not going to spoil anything else because I think that it's worth it just to go into this book not knowing anything more than what I've already told you. But there have been so many twists and turns, so many things that I did not see coming. Also realize I haven't picked up Deep and Shallow Lies in a few days. I'm loving that book. It's just a matter of I don't have time to physically read right now, and it really sucks because I was really enjoying that book. But I want to finish that up. I want to finish up Pretty Girls. I want to finish up House of Leaves. Welcome to Thursday. Today is my first day this week that I haven't had after work activities. I did have to run to the store, but it took me 5 minutes, and it feels so good just to be home, just to be chilling out and relaxing. My plan for this evening is I do unfortunately have to do some editing, so I will be working on that, but as soon as that's done, food, and then reading Deep and Shallow Lies. I really want to make a dent into that. Make a rather large dent into House of Leaves, aka try to finish it. So one or both of those will be happening this evening. I finished Pretty Girls this morning. I really loved it. It was so good. I wish that I could tell you more, but I feel like when you read a thriller, because I will die on the pedestal that this book is a thriller, not a horror. You don't want to know anything going into it, but it was really good, really fantastic. It was definitely a dark thriller. There were horrific moments, but there were not horrific themes throughout the book. There were thrilling themes throughout the book, and I really enjoyed it. And that's not an insult, because when you go on Goodreads, it says that it's a thriller. My library just so happened to be wrong in calling it a horror. Really loved it. I rated it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I feel like this week has been a huge success because I've had 1 2-star, which sucks, a 5-star, and a 4.5 star. I know it looks like it's pitch black out. It's very sunny out still. I don't understand. I finished House of Leaves. I'm not sure I've talked about what this book is about in this video. We'll talk about what this book is about first, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review pretty dang quickly because my wrap up is going to be coming shortly. And I'm honestly so furious that I don't want to be talking about this book right now. So this is the story of this house that is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And this family moves into it. And the father of the family, there's 2 kids and 2 parents, mom and dad. Father is like a filmmaker. So he's filming this whole entire documentary on the house. And the thing is, the story is told about a collection of articles about someone. Hold up, back up. The story is told by this man who has read a collection of articles that this other man put together, and that man has died. That man was obsessed with the documentary that our main story was about, right? So we're not following the man who lives in the house. We're not following the documentary. We're not following the person who's watching the documentary. We are quite literally following someone who stumbled across a bunch of papers put together by someone who watched a documentary about a cool event. And it just infuriates me because I kept reading because I thought that maybe all the different stories were going to connect or were going to interest me at some point, and they didn't. Only thing from this book I enjoyed was when the pages got super funky like this, because they were very much reflecting the terror and the feeling of what it was like in this house. But everything else in this book felt completely pointless. It felt like I was reading some bad doctoral degree paper. I felt awful because there are these footnotes. Let's see if I can find them. There's these footnotes referencing fake articles of other people analyzing things in the text, and then you would sit and read what those people were analyzing in this documentary. So you'd get whole entire chapters that would be things like, oh, this person wrote a whole entire article about why this one look between the husband and wife in the documentary is important to their entire marriage. And this book, how long are you? It's close to 700 pages long. To be fair, you don't have to read 700 pages to get the story. You read about 530 of them, and then there are appendixes in the back. More than one. Appendi? I don't, honest to God, know if I am not the right audience, too dumb, or just care about myself too much, or if I have a different opinion about what reading should be, because this wasn't like a normal story where you sit down and you're like, okay, yes, let me read a book. I'm gonna read 50 pages and it's gonna be great. No, it was not like that. It was like a puzzle. You're going back and forth, you're flipping between things, you're trying to put a puzzle together, you're trying to build something. I understand that, but I didn't enjoy doing that. And I like puzzles. I love puzzles, finding the clues and putting things together. But this was dry and boring, and there were these random intermittent topics, like very graphically described sex scenes between our guy who found the dead man's papers, and he would just be talking about this stripper that he's in love with and the fact that he can't get her, so he's gonna go have sex with this other girl, and he's gonna describe it in great detail for us. And it just felt like a man wrote this book. A man did write this book, but it felt like a man wrote this book. Pretty girls put me into a slump. I haven't read anything all day and it's Friday. Hello, I just got out of the shower. It's later the same evening. I'm still slumping pretty bad after reading Pretty Girls. I did read the first chapter of The String Diaries and of Shallow Graves, and I've made the executive decision that while they are perfectly fine books, they are not what I'm in the mood for right now. I'm just having a book hangover. I do have a horror graphic novel from NetGalley that I need to be reading. It's called Graven Eye, and it's about a werewolf, I believe. And it's supposed to be horror. I've actually already read part 1 to make sure that I actually wanted to continue on and read more of it, and I'm gonna be doing that right now, right here. I've finished. Not in love. Honestly, don't even know what to say about it. The narrator was this house that this one woman was living in, and this other woman was coming to clean, and the two of them kind of strike up a romance, which was nice, except the woman who lives in the house is a werewolf and does taxidermy on animals that she kills and is really sexually into death. The woman who comes to clean for her is being abused by her significant other. I think it was her husband. I'm at a loss. The art was good. Okay, moving on. Probably like a 2.5. Hi, welcome to, it's actually the middle of the day Saturday. Well, it's 4 p.m. Saturday. I just got to page 200 in Dark and Shallow Lies. I'm enjoying the book. I'm definitely going to keep reading, but I do have a few more chores I need to get done today. So I'm going to stop now at the point where I need like something a little bit more, something to happen, more substantial, more direct hints or more action or more direction. I feel like we've been in this wishy-washy area of like her friend is missing and we don't know what's going on for 200 pages. And I just want like a little bit more of, oh, we know what's going on, so we can direct towards finding the end solution, whatever that is, whether her friend is dead or alive or what. So of course I didn't read any more last night after I took a break to do some chores, but I have woken up this morning and I have started working on Dark and Shallow Lies. Have I been calling this book Deep and Shallow Lies? I can't remember. I'll have to go back and check the editing, but it's Dark and Shallow Lies. My neighbor's air conditioner. I'll be quick. I'm at page 265, so I still have 135-ish pages left, 140, and I'm kind of bored with it, to be honest. Like, I feel like things aren't happening. It's just kind of a loop. Like, what is happening has already happened, and it already happened before that, and I'm just waiting for something to happen. The last chapter ended with like a good reveal, and I feel like it's the first one we've had in over 150 pages. I just finished Dark and Shallow Lies. I ended up rating this a 3 out of 5 star. I'm kind of disappointed because I fell so in love with this book in the first 100 pages, and then all 300 pages after that were just kind of a plateau. I didn't feel really pulled into the mystery. I felt like things were dragged out way too long. I felt this like repeat that I kind of told you about earlier. Wasn't super into some of the characters. I did really like the writing. It was lyrical and fun. I think that the plot itself could have been weirder, but it did have some weird magical realism elements to it. So overall, not a bad book, but not absolutely my favorite thing that I've ever read. I think this week was decently successful. I read 6 horror or thriller books. Oh, and I should say that Dark and Shallow Lies once again had some horrific elements for sure, but I would not categorize it as a horror. That part of my week was a little bit unsuccessful. I read way too many books that aren't actually categorized as horror, but it's fine. I had a good time with it. Starting out at the beginning of the week, I read Act of God, which I rated a 2 star, and then I read The Chalk Man, which I rated a 5 star. I then read Pretty Girls, which I rated a 4.5, House of Leaves, which I rated a 1.5, Graven Eye, which I rated a 2.5, and Dark and Shallow Lies, which I rated a 3 star. I think it's really funny that I basically had one of each star this entire week of reading. I really enjoyed this though, and I totally want to do it again. I think it would be fun to do every few months. Let me know down below if you have a favorite horror book or if you have one that you think I would enjoy, because I will definitely see if I can get my hands on it and try reading it, maybe for the next round. Otherwise, thank you for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Next week, I will not be having a Monday vlog because I will be traveling for work and it's just going to be too much on me to try to worry about vlogging and then editing and uploading. So I'm sorry that there won't be a video. I don't remember how my outro goes, but until next time, I'll talk to you in the comments. Bye.